How you guys doing? This Coach E. Allen with the Game Ready podcast on the Sideline Sports Network. Tonight we're going to dive into what it really takes to recover from a serious injury on time. Told to you through four of the biggest comeback stories in football right now, right before training camp starts. I'm a former college and professional football player. Now I'm a performance coach here at Atlas Performance Training here in Orlando, Florida. You can join us every Tuesday night right here on the Sideline Sports Network, where the focus is helping athletes and former athletes and active individuals understand their bodies well enough to keep doing what they love to do for as long as they want to do it. Tonight, that means understanding what recovery actually is, because almost everything you've been told about recovery, it may be a little wrong. So let's get into it. Right now, as I'm talking to you, in NFL training camps opening up across the country, the four biggest names in all of sports are racing against the clock to get back on the field. These are four elite athletes, four serious injuries. They're in the same league. They have the same goal, which is to get back to be ready for week one. And this is the fascinating part to me, and it's kind of sad too. They're not all going to make it. One of them is ahead of schedule and will be on the field on week one with no issues. One of the players may not play one down this year, and he'll have to sit out a year just to recover to continue his rehab. And the difference between all four of these athletes, that doesn't mean that one of them is tougher than the other. They all are world-class athletes. And as you know, if you follow one of these athletes, they have some of the best medical care money can buy in the world. And the difference between most people that understand this, they don't really understand how the body actually works. But once you understand it, you'll watch every comeback injury moving forward a little bit differently. Um, Theirs and maybe even your own. We're going to talk about player one, Patrick Mahomes. He is the face of the NFL, probably one of the most dynamic quarterbacks of this century. He injured his leg in week 15 of last season in a loss to the Charger, which was a divisional game, and he had a really horrible injury. He tore his ACL and his LCL, two of the main ligaments that are responsible for stabilizing your knee. They rushed him into surgery the next day in Dallas. The Chiefs medical staff put the timeline roughly that he will be ready in about 9 months, which would put him back on the field back right around week one. But by every report, Patrick Mahomes is ahead of that schedule, and he was off crutches early. He was dropping back, throwing balls. If you saw the videos of him, out on the golf course swinging the golf club with a knee sleeve on, I think he may have a brace on. Um, 3 months after surgery, 3 to 4 months after surgery, he was up and moving around. And reports this month say he's expected to make a full recovery, and he may be cleared around the start of training camp. You can call that a 7 to 8 month post-surgery recovery, which in a lot of cases in his injury, that's a miracle. And he's pretty much he's on track to be ready to start against the Broncos week one. But here's the part I want you to notice, because this is one of the most fascinating and probably the most, the smartest things in the advancements of sports medicine. The Kansas City Chiefs are not just healing Mahomes. Some believe that they're trying to adjust how he plays. They just signed, one of the top running backs, the Super Bowl champion from the Seattle Seahawks. I'm not sure his name. Maybe my producer will put that up. He came on real strong, and he got signed by the Chiefs. And the plan is to keep Mahomes in the pocket and to design have less designed plays where he scrambles and off script runs so he can actually keep himself out of harm's way. This is not, they're not really trying to send the same player back into the arena with the same demands on that injured, that previously injured knee. It's, and to me, it seems like they're bringing him back early in the season in a modified role that protects him from himself. And hopefully that, it works. But this is not a weakness. A lot of, people, they understand the severity of the injury, but this is an intelligent return to play, and it's an intelligent return on the investment on a $500 million quarterback that you just re-signed to a extension in the off season, which is unheard of. They're not trying to just heal the tissue. That's pretty much half the job. The other half is making sure that the injured tissue that and the structures around that area are strong enough to handle the volume of work and the abuse that he's gonna go through. And we're gonna come back to that a little bit later, and we're gonna move on to player two, which is Patrick Mahomes' former teammate. And you really can't rush his injury. He's having a pretty rough time right now. It's probably the hardest story that we're going to cover tonight. Tyreek Hill, the cheetah, one of the fastest men to ever play the game. I think he was clocked at like a 4.1 or some insane number in the 40, and he depends a lot on his speed. He injured his left knee in a loss against the Jets last September. His knee was dislocated. It wasn't sprained. This was a total dislocation. If you saw the injury, it was pretty gruesome. He tore most of the ligaments in his knee along with his ACL. He was carted off the field. He needed 2 surgeries to actually repair the knee and make sure that his recovery was on track. And by the doctor's own account, they told him that he may not ever walk normally again. 10 months later, he's doing pretty good. He can run, he can jump, he's training hard. And in a recent video, he says something that tells you everything about how recovery really works. He said he still has no power in his left leg. He has, this is pretty much in his own words, the explosive power that made Tyreek the cheetah and his ability to cut and his route running is not the best. He's probably one of the best runners. He's probably one of the best wide receivers that can stretch a defense, and he can cut on a dime. He doesn't have the strength and the explosive power to actually execute those movements, which is, which is one of the main reasons why he may sit out the 2026 season. As in the business of football, we all know Tyreek was released by the Dolphins in February. He's a free agent now, and it's genuinely unclear if he will play in 2026, if at all. But this is pretty much the important lesson in this episode. It's not because he's not working hard. You've seen some of the videos of his recovery. If you can find them, I mean, he's doing pretty good. But because he does not, it's not because he doesn't want it. It's because some injuries have a floor, which is a biological minimum. And no amount of resources, no amount of heart, no amount of hurry to get back to play can beat those odds. The tissue sets the timeline, not the calendar. The competitor, not the fans, not anyone, not the doctors. The lag in the strength and power in an injury of his is probably the last to come back. Excuse me. It's almost the strength and power in an injured leg, especially in the knee. It's probably the last thing to come back. I have this issue with one of my clients I'm working with now. He hasn't had an injury to that degree of Tyreek, but he had a severely torn MCL in his left knee, and he had to actually have it reattached to his tibia. His recovery has taken him 9 months to just be able to squat without any pain. It really had to walk, 3 miles without any pain. He could barely walk without a limp, and that's due to the slow aspect of healing in that, with that injury. Now we're working on him returning to he plays beach volleyball. We're working. We just started working on getting him back into a mode where we can start working on developing his strength and power. It's the last thing to recover when you're recovering from an injury this drastic. And going back to Tyreek, he can do almost everything he could do before he got injured, but he just does not have the power or the strength to execute what he's known for. We're going to talk about player number 3, George Kittle. He is the superstar tight end for the San Francisco 49ers. He's considered one of the best in the league over the last 5 years. He tore his Achilles in the playoff game in January, and it's pretty much been a textbook recovery for him. And usually Achilles tears are 8 to 12 months, and on paper that makes him possibly to be ready by week 1. Pretty much it's a long shot, except Kittle is ahead of schedule, and the reason is in the detail that most fans have never heard of. The reporting is that he suffered a clean tear and was relatively high up in his Achilles. The tendon tore in the connection to his tibia, which means that it wasn't shredded. It wasn't in one bad spot. If it was shredded or shredded in half, that's almost trying to put 2 pieces of tissue back together. Since his tear was up high near the tibia, near the what is called the origin, if I'm correct, of that tendon, all they had to do is reattach it to the tibia, and the healing process will go pretty smooth. And he's fairly young; he can recover with no problem. I know he's glad he didn't shred it, but this is one trap that I would want you to avoid. When we say torn Achilles or torn ACL, like it's one thing with one timeline, and I'm going to let you know right now, it's really not. 2 people can have the exact same injury, and they can be injured months and on paper be months apart, but in reality, the severity and the location and the cleanliness of the injury actually matters, and it actually will show that those two factors are extremely relevant in the timeline of recovery. In regards to Kittle, because the severity and the location and the cleanness of his tear and the age of this athlete, the severity, and the other structures that are involved, it all matters in his recovery and why he is recovering at such a fast rate. Which is why comparing your recovery to someone else's, if you get injured, is one of the most discouraging and useless things that you can do. Your timeline is yours. It's not written by anyone, but it's written by the specifics of your injury and your body, not by what some other person did. Not even the surgeon. No, the surgeon, or if you have had any kind of surgical repairs, not even a surgeon can predict when you are going to recover. One of my specialties is working with people who are recovering from injuries and major knee, major joint replacement surgeries, and the timeline varies. And it pretty much varies on how much, pain you can endure, to be honest, and how healthy you are. So there's so many other factors that go into it. No one injury is the same. The main objective is to understand when you get injured, what are the factors and what are the connecting elements that cause that injury, and what can you do to make your recovery as clean and as fast and as clean as possible. The fourth athlete we're going to talk about is Nick Bosa, the 49, the San Francisco 49ers pass rush specialist. He's been one of the most dominant defensive players in the last 10 years in football. Bosa tore his knee up back in week 3 of last season. Um, but this could be an advantage for him because it actually increases his time horizon for recovery. He got hurt, which means pretty much he got hurt early, and unlike Mahomes and Hill, who got hurt late in the year, Bosa had nearly a full calendar year of rehab before his surgery even started, and he expects to be ready right out of the gate around. He would probably be ready at you know I think the first game of the season. Um, to look at this in a different way, time is not a luxury in recovery. It is the active ingredient. Bosa's injury was serious, and reportedly the second time he tore this is the second time that he tore the ACL on the same leg. But because the clock started early, he has a long enough time horizon to make sure he does everything right, so he doesn't re-injure his knee again for the second time. Mahomes is also racing the clock. Hill ran out of his for the most part, if you want to look at it. And Bosa has plenty of time on his side. They're in the same league, the same season, and they have wildly different amounts of times for recovery. And time, more than anything, is what determines how they will recover from the injury and come back from the injury. And if you have less time, sometimes that leads to you to rush to return before you're even ready. And in Bosa's case, this is the second time he injured the same knee, and that time could have been spent on that time he spent on actually rehabbing. Probably they should have kind of figured out why he tore his knee up in the first place, and instead of trying to figure out how they're going to when he injured the second time, they ended up having to repair it the third time. So let me pull all 4 of these stories together, because inside of them is the complete picture of what a timely recovery actually requires. And these requirements are encompassed in 4 principles. Principle 1: the injury states the timeline. The timeline is not stated by you. Mother Nature, the severity, the location, the damage writes the schedule of your recovery. Mahomes is clean surgical repair, Hill's catastrophic knee dislocation, and Kittle's high clean tear each came with its own biological clock, and the athlete does not have any power in negotiating that time in recovery and when they'll be ready. One step of a timely recovery, in my opinion, is accepting the timeline, the injury that it actually takes to recover from the injury, and instead of wishing you had the one that you wanted or that you were instructed to have, by the medical staff, if that's even possible anymore. So the second principle is this clock starts when the injury happens. So when the time horizon from injury to recovery matters. It matters enormously. Bosa's injury was early in the season, which gave him a full year to recover. That's why he's pretty much he's going to be doing fine, and it's a same injury that he injured the same leg that he had injured before, so he has a pretty good understanding of what it will take to get him back to playing in a fast. Hopefully, they did a procedure that actually will keep it from tearing a third time. Because usually that third time you're skating on possibly having some other issues that pretty much will shut you down for good. Well, when you determine, the time horizon when you get hurt determines how much time you have to do things right. And when the time horizon is short, the temptation to rush is at its highest, and it is exactly when re-injuries happen. And I can attest to that myself. I sprained my MCL, and I sprained my right MCL several times, and I rushed back, and now I have like 2 degrees of separation in my right knee. I have an ankle injury that I came back too soon from, and I have bone spurs, and my right ankle know, it has some mobility issues due to that fact. Um, one of the other principles is strength and power come back last. And this is one of the things that gets people in trouble. You start feeling good after injury during your recovery, but you don't understand you don't have the strength and power in a lot of times. And strength and power is a neurological factor within the recovery process. When you injure yourself, you also have a issue where your body will totally shut down that area, and pretty much it will put it out of commission even after it's healed and it's structurally repaired. You have to actually, that's why you have to go to physical therapy, you have to do rehab, because you have to retrain that area and the nerves of that area and the musculature around that area to be able to activate and perform at a level that you were before, because your body pretty much shut that area down so it could heal. So the time horizon for healing is slowed down in some people's mind when they can't do the things that they thought they could do, even though they can walk, they can get up, they can do normal things, but they can't jump, they can't, they can't really do the things that they used to do before the injury until they do a proper job of rehabbing and getting and working to get that strength and power back. This is one of the things that most people get wrong. And as you can see, Hill can, Tariq Hill can run and jump, but he has no power. And he actually admitted it. But being able to move is not the same as being able to produce force. The ability to walk comes back extremely early. The ability to explode and cut and sprint, it takes a hit, and it's the last thing to return. And going back to sports after it's back is how you end up before it's healed. Before you get that back is a recipe to get injured again. You have to kind of look at recovery as looking at recovery, looking recovered and being recovered are two very different things, and that's what gets a lot of people in trouble. And I had a deep discussion with a member of mine this morning about actually kind of pulling back, even though he feels good about how he can jump and he can do everything he thought he could do, but we haven't dealt with the issue of him recovering, and it was a long discussion. Principle 4: a timely return is a smart return, not just a healed one. Just because you're healed doesn't mean you're ready to return and to compete or to play at a high level. The Chiefs are modifying the role of Patrick Mahomes to protect his knee, it's probably one of the smartest moves they could make. And I'm looking forward to seeing him play and seeing if this recipe that they have put together actually works. I don't think he's going to be ready until like around week number 4. If he comes back too early, I think he may have he may have some other issues that you know that may extend his recovery even more. Um, they're trying to change the demands on his leg so the tissue can actually heal correctly. Um, but you just can't, and because you really just can't send a repair structure back into an exact situation that damaged it and call it recovered. Now everything I just said played out on national TV with these four football players, but it's playing out in living rooms and doctors' offices and gyms all over the country right now with people who have never played a down of professional football, or any sort of sport. But I'm going to actually try to connect this and tell you what this means, what this possibly can mean for you. Because here's the thing: people recovering from a knee replacement, the weekend warrior who had been rehabbing torn ACL for several weeks, and he's a 50-year-old or a 50-year-old coming back from a shoulder surgery, and they're governed by the same 4 principles as Mahomes, Hill, and Kittle and Bosa. The biology does not care what level they actually biology doesn't care what level they were at before. It cares how you actually recover and how you actually take care of the injury moving forward. So let me give you what these stories meant for your body, what these stories mean for your body or the body of somebody you love and who is recovering from a surgery right now. First, you need to respect the timeline that the injury gave you and get honest with what it really is. This is not the internet's timeline or something you read on ChatGPT. This is a timeline where you have to actually test where you're at and manage your recovery accordingly. It's not your buddy's timeline who wants you to get back on the golf course as soon as possible or whatever. This is your timeline based on your specific injury and for someone who is qualified to assess it. And hopefully you have a team around you if you do suffer from a joint injury that they can help you assess your recovery and gauge where you're at in a proper manner. Second, don't confuse moving well with being ready to come back. The most dangerous moment in any recovery is the window where you feel like you can do anything. You can move, the pain is gone, the strength and the power and control are not back yet. And you won't find that out until you actually try to do something like go for a run or increase your volume of what you're doing out on the golf course or yard work or anything. And it's the moment that people re-injure those injured areas, and feeling fine is not the finish line. That is what I usually say. Feeling fine is usually not the finish line, and you have to let your body learn how to read where your body is at when you are recovering from an injury. Third, rebuild the strength and power deliberately, because these two elements come back last, and it's only if you train them. Healing closes the wound. Training rebuilds the capacity. These are two different jobs. And the second one is where recovery is really won or lost. And a lot of people ignore this step. The fourth is, and the one that most people skip automatically, is figuring out why it happened. If you tore something or wore something out, there was a very reason why that happened. It could have been a restriction, some kind of asymmetry or weakness or a movement pattern that you did not see. You want to try to fix the injury without fixing the cause. And pretty much that goes into what's called prehabilitation. Well, I call it prehab. Whenever I work with someone, I try to make sure we stave off any kind of injury before we do a a a, a succession and a circuit of movements that are considered prehabilitative movement to actually just prepare the body so we can work and to prepare the body to understand how to get down and how to work within certain ranges of motion, which will keep you out of trouble. The, that's the difference between healing and truly recovering. Healing is what the body does. Recovering completely is what happens last, and it's something that you build during rehab. So this season, so this season, I want you to watch Patrick Mahomes drop back on opening night. Hopefully, watch and see whether George Kittle is out there the first month. When you wonder if you see the cheater or if he ever gets back, I want you to watch and see things the way that somebody in my position would. It's not how tough or who is tougher or who's the hardest person out on the or the toughest person out on the field, but it's the person who is able to actually recover in a timely manner and actually do it in a way where they trust the process of their recovery. These are four different athletes, four different injuries, and they're on four different recovery clocks. Each one of them is teaching us a lesson about patience and time and trying to do things right. When your body or somebody you love needs to recover from something, someday maybe it already is. But when the day comes to remember, when the day comes, if you have experienced any kind of knee injury or any kind of uh, debilitating setback physically, remember to respect your timeline of healing, rebuild the power, and try to fix the cause of why it happened and try to understand why your body was injured in the first place. Ask questions of your PT, your physical therapist, and your doctor to see if they can give you a heads up of why it even happened. And the comeback is just not healing, but it's about getting you back to where you were before. Well, that's it. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. Remember to like and subscribe to the Sideline Sports Network. Thank you to my producer, Jay, for setting everything up. And stay tuned for the Sideline Sports Show with JB at 8 p.m. tonight. I'm Coach E. Allen. This is the Game Ready Podcast. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready and you will be game ready. I'll see you next Tuesday.